This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Where I want to start is your thoughts around the team, the Midnight Express, and how that all started and where you first heard about the Midnight Express. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to start there and your first memories or your first recollection of the Midnight Express.
That'll be fun, but I think we better hit something before it gets lost in the shuffle, which is ironic. And when this airs, it's Bobby Eaton's 63rd birthday.
That's correct.
And I think there's some irony in that. But in the old days, Paul, and I know you were a baby, if not even born back in the, 85 and starting there. The only way you got information about other territories was wrestling magazines, because each individual territory had a television that only aired in a couple, 3 states. That's why it was called a territory. And any information that you got had to be in that viewing area. So I never saw the Midnight Express until I saw them for the first time, other than wrestling magazines and reading what propaganda was put in there back in those days when they came to Jim Crockett Promotions.
There's David. Ask him go to the ring. Nobody in professional wrestling but myself has the quality, the capacity to introduce my men. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you now something the likes of which you've never seen before. The most dangerous combination of professional sports. The skill, the strength, the stamina, and the ability of 2 men blended together as one. The most exciting combination in the history of professional wrestling. Twin sons of different mothers, Loverboy Dennis and beautiful Bobby, the Midnight Express. Now, well, there they are, the Midnight Express, and what an introduction Jim Cornette gave, David. He wanted you to come over, and he took the microphone, and
this is going to be interesting.
Jim Cornette, the manager of the Midnight Express, and that's the combination of the Midnight Express you see in the ring. Beautiful Bobby and Loverboy Dennis.
And beautiful Bobby is in the ring right now. Let's see how he does. This is my, really the first time I've seen them in action. I've heard a lot about them.
Jim Crockett Promotions, again, that's where I first became familiar with it. You mentioned as a baby, I was born in 77, and you mentioned this drops on the main feed, August 14th, 1958. So when this does drop on Saturday, he will have been 63 years old. But again, Midnight Express, Jim Crockett Promotions, that's where I recall him working with Dennis Condrey and Jim Cornette as well. So he starts wrestling there, working through the territories. When did you first meet the Midnight Express? What year is that? Do you remember?
Yeah, it would be when I got to Jim Crockett, been 85 too. I did take from what I read in the wrestling magazines, and you had to know how to read between the lines, in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And they did a great job of explaining the wrestling business, but it was done in a behind the scenes context. They were already becoming megastars in a territory that Bill Watts liked the big guys. He was like the old WWF. You had to be a monster to work there. That was who Bill Watts liked. But here comes these 2 average sized guys and Jim Cornette with a tennis racket. And I'm sure Bill Watts, before he had ever seen them perform, thought, I'm going to use those guys. Then apparently he saw them live or sent a spy in to see them live. And he thought, my God, what an act these guys have got going on. So if they're flourishing in his territory, Mid-South, the world is going to be their oyster pretty quickly.
They started, Bobby's career would start in NWA Mid-America in the late 70s, 76 to 80, then transitioning to Continental Wrestling Association in the early 80s from 80 to 83. Even spent a little bit of a brief time in Georgia Championship Wrestling, captured the National Television Championship shortly there as well. And then he would transition, worked a little bit in Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling. Mid-South, again, working under Bill Watts before making that transition, as you said, over to Jim Crockett Promotions in 1985. And again, that's where I'm most familiar with him as a fan of Jim Crockett Promotions. But again, working there as a tag team, would work with Dennis Condrey before then, partnering with Sweet Stan Lane. You have to remember and think back to some of the trips and travels up and down the roads with the Midnight Express, some of the battles, if you will, with them as well, and their unbelievable matches with the Rock and Roll Express. What do you remember from some of those days in the mid 80s there?
Every time you refer to your sources and toss out more information, I have to double back. 1976 is when Bobby started?
Yes, sir.
For Christ's sakes. I was graduating high school in 1976. So Bobby Eaton, I started in 82. Bobby Eaton, now I'm a dinosaur. I'm a relic. I'm one of the oldest guys still active in the business. Bobby Eaton, that would have put him being in the business 6 years before me.
He started at age 17, Arn, and for NWA Mid-America, and he entered his first match, and he lost to Bearcat Wright for the NWA Mid-America.
As well he should.
Yeah,
he should have been out back at his mom's house cutting the grass, or running to the grocery store, or doing something that 17-year-olds in Huntsville do. It shouldn't have been throwing hands with Bearcat Wright, for God's sakes.
There you go.
So there's one thing, I didn't even know that. I knew he started young, but no wonder he was so good.
Yeah.
My God, he wrestled for 100 years.
He worked with guys like Leaping Lanny Poffo in 1978. He tagged with him in NWA Mid-America as well. So there's a lot that that you don't know unless you look it up and do your homework about Bobby in terms of background and who he worked with. And
that's just experience.
Yes.
That you can't pay for. And you get, you hear about guys like him and Terry Gordy and all these different guys that started. Fit Finley, it's such a ridiculous age. Bobby Eaton starting at 17, I bet you by the time he turned 18 and was legal to do anything, I don't know, back in those days, I think you could buy a beer at 18 years old. By the time he got to 18, he was probably already polished, because my God, did he progress from that point forward. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was, and he was also partners with Nick Goulas.
He was.
Son, George Goulas, correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. He spent some time with him together working as a tag team as well.
So, once we got to Jim Crockett Promotions, I thought I had a pretty good grasp on the business and could assess talent and was starting to learn the business. You go for a certain time when you first start in this business wrestling to where you're about half wrestler and about half fan. And I think that's a good thing, because you want to look at what you're seeing and enjoy it as a fan. But when you see something that doesn't work, you got to step into your wrestler hat and go, okay, I know why that didn't work. And maybe I would put something like that there. So when the first time I saw them, I was in full wrestler mode, and they just were so crafty. They used Jimmy so well, and all three were so different. Dennis Condrey, he was a heel's heel. He would bring the audience into it. He would be a guy that, when he was coming down the aisle, you didn't want to reach out and slap him on the back, because you just didn't know what he was capable of.
If he's going to slap back.
And I can assure you he would have.
Yeah.
Jimmy enticed everybody in the world to try to slap all three of them.
That's right.
Nobody better at what he did. Which brings us to Bobby. what I noticed about him is every time he took a tag and stepped through those ropes, something magical happened. No wasted motion, nothing minimal, nothing that was out of place. It simply followed what was going on in the ring story-wise, and he just enhanced it. And every time he shot up, now this was pre-luchas or pre-anybody.
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. Do you really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to savewithconrad.com.
That was coming off the top like this. You know, you had Randy Savage dropping an elbow, but I dare say, and no disrespect to Randy, but if you tell the truth, Bobby Eaton's knee off the top rope or his Alabama jam or his elbow were as good as anybody in the history of the business. If you don't believe me, go back and look at it. Watch it with the naked eye, with no preconceived notions in your head. Just look at the quality. Best punch I ever saw. Incredible. And just the thought process that he had to go in and do his part at getting a match over made what Dennis did that much better, made Jimmy's job very, very easy. And those guys just clicked right away. And from day one, they were something special. They have lasted the test of time. When people are still, that are in the know, Paul, and I consider myself in the know, when I say they're the best tag team I ever saw, they probably were.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com.